Hey there. I'm excited to announce this to you today. This is what you've been waiting for in your spiritual quest. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm finally ready to announce it that it's ready to go. It's the Grief to Growth Community Circle. Now, this is a sanctuary where like-minded souls are united in their journey through grief and towards personal transformation. It's more than just a place, it's a beginning, it's a commitment to growth and understanding. Here you're finding not just a community, but you're entering a circle of trust and depth. You're going to engage with interactive coursework. You'll dive into exclusive podcast episodes and partake in discussions that illuminate the path from mourning to empowerment. This is a realm where every question is honored and every individual's journey is validated. To be part of this exclusive circle, visit us at grieftogrowth.com/community or look for the chat icon at the bottom of every page on the main website. Remember that entry is a privilege because I want to ensure that every member is as dedicated and genuine as you are. You must apply to join, but the journey within is worth every step. So go ahead and join us today. Check it out, grieftogrowth.com/community, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Hi there. Welcome to Grief to Growth podcast. Your host is Brian Smith, spiritual seeker, best-selling author, grief survivor, and life coach. Brian believes that the worst tragedies of life provide the greatest opportunity for growth. Brian says he was planted, not buried, and he is here to help you grow where you've been planted by the difficulties in life. In each episode, Brian and his guests will share what has helped them to survive and thrive. It is his sincere hope this episode helps you today.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Brian Smith back with another episode of Grief to Growth. And I've got a very special guest with me today. This is Mary Terhune. And if you watch the show or listen to the podcast, that name may be familiar to you. Mary was on, I want to refer back to episode 46. It was in January of 2020 this year. So I'm going to encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. It was a fascinating episode. But today we're going to talk about some very specific and some very timely things. So first I want to introduce Mary. She's a Hay House author of the book Out of the Blue, True Life Experiences of Awakening, Revelation, and Transformation, sharing her personal journey of spiritual awakening, mystical encounters and visions, as well as the message given to her for all humanity. She's been involved in the healing arts for over 40 years, beginning as a registered nurse who journeyed into natural systems of healing, including homeopathy, reiki, massage therapy, and meditation. And Mary, in that book, talks about these enlightening experiences that she had and some messages she was given for humanity. So I thought in these times we're going through right now, I'd like to talk to Mary about how those messages apply to the times we're going through today. And also Mary was given a lot about homeopathy, which is a system that can support some of the things we're also doing. So we're recommending, and I want to say this off the top, that you follow all the advice given by the CDC and your medical doctors. We are supporting that. But this is something that could be supplemental to that. So with that, I want to introduce Mary Terhune.
Hi, Brian.
Mary, it's great to have you back. And to get started, what I'd like to do is let's just kind of briefly talk about your book and your spiritual experiences for people that don't know. And again, I'm going to refer people back to go into more detail, but just to get people to know who you are.
Well, what I want to start by saying is that no evolution, no revolution of spirit, no transformation in spirit happens without crisis. And I'm talking big crisis, because to make a breakthrough from the egoic pattern of believing we're separate and suffering in that separation in many ways, to break through that takes an enormous crisis in one's life. And that is what happened to me back in the 80s when I lost everything. I had to lose everything to gain myself, is how I look at it. And I lost all the money I had earned for my retirement. I lost friends. I lost my home. Eventually, I lost my job. I lost my car. Everything went. And I was thrown into deep, deep despair and extreme fear. Something we're going through now. Mm-hmm. People are going through extreme fear. And we're going through a crisis now. And in that moment of that crisis, when I could no longer think any more horrible thoughts, any more fearful thoughts, my mind completely stopped And I called out to a God I did not believe in, or to anything that I didn't believe, that I believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I called out by saying, please let me die. This is too hard. And in that moment, which was really a prayer, light entered my room in the living room. And this light began to speak with me, and a peace filled my heart and my being. And the first thing he said was, now do you see that all forgiveness is self-forgiveness? And he spoke seven revelations to me. I recognized this being as the Master Jesus. Mm-hmm. I was raised Catholic, but had left that a long time ago because I felt it separated people from each other, and I didn't believe in that. And when he spoke to me these revelations, it was really, I felt him as a great spiritual master, a wise being who, in the end, wanted us to tell us that was all about light, and this light of divinity lived within us. And as he spoke these 7 revelations on the ego, on disease, and other things, mm-hmm. which is in the book, of course, mm-hmm. He opened up my whole chakras. In other words, he opened up this energy system within me, this divine energy system. Of course, I didn't know at the time that this was the Kundalini, the energy that's dormant within the bottom part of our chakra system. Mm-hmm. But I experienced it. I had sort of vaguely heard about it at that time. I was working in a hospital in research administration in Boston. I was attending my 3rd year of massage school, because instead of going in to become a clinical psychologist, I ended up going into the healing arts, mm-hmm. in that way, and the other healing arts. And it was shocking to me, but yet it felt so familiar, and it felt more real than real. And I had never known about this, heard about this energy in my life growing up, of course. And I knew that this is what I wanted, but I had no idea that this lived inside me. Mm-hmm. It would take me many years to assimilate and understand what was given to me. A few years after that experience, and I explain it very deeply in the book, I don't want to go into it too much now because people can listen to this in that other interview I did with you.
Yeah.
I don't want to get, bogged down in that, but it was quite so phenomenal. It changed me forever, opened me to a love I never knew existed inside me. He opened the 3rd eye, and I could see things that I couldn't see before, like the mm-hmm. photonic light behind the universe that creates the universe, mm-hmm. which some call consciousness. I call it consciousness as well, but it's divine in nature. It's a dynamis, a dynamic force of intelligence that lives in us as us. Later, I would discover that that was my true nature. At that time, I thought it was, what is this about? I recognized it, but I didn't completely assimilate it, knowing that this was the true nature of humanity. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of stepping back and forth into the egoic structure of fear. The egoic structure starts with fear, and then it goes downhill from there. Mm-hmm. Pride, ego, all of those things, jealousy, thinking other people are different than us, mm-hmm. and therefore I can treat them poorly. That had nothing to do with me. And many of these other aspects of egoic structure. And from those egoic structures, of course, we created world structures. We created our world structures that said, in this world, all of our structures, our medical structures, our financial structures that said, I can have a lot, but there's not enough for you.
Yeah.
Those are egoic structures. I can have this, but I cut the line off for you. Well, these people can have this, and you don't get that.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough. Well, we can see what's happening today, of course. These structures can no longer...
Yeah, so what you're saying is the world structures are a reflection of our own individual egoic structures.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And a few years later, I was really yearning to find a pair of eyes in a human form that could help me understand what happened to me. And by serendipity, and I talk about it in the book, I'm not going to go into it now because I have so much else to say.
Yeah.
Serendipity, I met a monk, and this monk was an enlightened being. And how did I know that? Well, you know when you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's in your own soul. That's how you know things are true, and it rings true with you. And so I received an initiation from this monk that allowed me to go deeper into my consciousness. That's when I experienced self-realization in its fullness, in its absolute glory and fullness, as the energy comes up, forms a crown of light around your head, and you know that you and the divine are absolutely one. You can call it Brahman, you can call it God, you can call it the one, you can call the dynamic sacred force of the universe, whatever you want to call it. The experience that we all have when we have it is that same sense of being home, being in bliss, being in peace, being in a love that fear cannot touch, because fear belongs to the lower realms.
Yeah.
And this is where humanity is heading. This is what, on a bigger scale of looking at things, this crisis is really all about on a spiritual level. And it's very interesting to me that they call it the corona virus, because corona means crown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not lost on me that when they look at this virus under the microscope, that there's a corona surrounding the different structures of light. So I call it the coronation of humanity into its divinity. And the way it happened was through nature. And the only way that real awakening happens is, and it's hard, is through crisis.
Yeah, that
It's
is
hard. It's hard for everyone.
It is. That's a hard saying, but it seems to be so common, right? I mean,
Yes.
our enlightened experiences, it's like you said, it's kind of like we get to the point where we have to let go. We've got to say, okay, I can't do this under my own power. I've got to, look out for something outside of myself. So I've seen that on an individual basis as I've read,
Yes.
accounts of people who have been enlightened. I work with a lot of parents who have lost children. And that's an event that seems to open people up. It breaks us down and it breaks us open, and then we grow from that. And so, what I hear you saying is, what I think I believe it also is that this virus, that's come to us, is here to teach us something.
Well, you said it well. It breaks us down and it breaks us open. What does it break? It breaks the egoic thought structure that we're all separate. That big lie, we've been carrying forever on earth. And now it's time for humanity to awaken. And, in order to get my attention back in the 80s, I had to lose everything to get my attention. Because my attention was fully in the egoic world of, you're separate from me, and being kind of pissy and, having that kind of attitude and fear and living off of, I can have it, but you can't. That type of an attitude. Or you're different than me, I'm better than you, all of that. All that has to break away, because it's a lie, and it keeps us in our own prison of fear and doubt. And we don't know who we are. So this is the time of, Mother Nature is delivering it. For a long time, we've known we can't keep living this way. And especially for these past 3 years, we realize we can't keep living this way, in hatred and division and putting children in cages, and you can have health care, but no, you can't. And deciding, well, is health care, should everybody have it, or is it just for a few special people? We knew we could not keep living this way.
I think you're right. I think we've known it's not sustainable, but we thought, it's getting us by for right now, right?
We could limp along.
Right.
And nature is saying, no, we can't limp along. The earth cannot live this way anymore. We can't live this way anymore. Because everyone feels sick about the separation between people and all the fighting and infighting that's going on. We know it's a sickness, and it is a disease of the ego.
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle speaks about that in his book, A New Earth. People should read that book, A New Earth, as well, and see how much he has to say about these times. And so we're creating a new structure in us. And from that new structure in us, as we reclaim our divinity, come out of fear and really claim that we are strong. Have that. Say that I am strong. Say I am that I am, and be strong.
Yeah.
I am strong.
Well, I think
And
one of
this
the interesting things
yeah, go ahead.
about this virus, as you were saying that, I just was reminded, it's all over, right? It's omnipresent.
Everybody,
It's everybody. Everybody is
everybody.
vulnerable to it. But it's really weird that it drives us physically apart. I mean, at the time when we really want to be together, we want to see our loved ones and stuff, that it's forcing us to turn within. It's forcing us to stop.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, something I want to tell you about today. My podcast platform, Buzzsprout, has recently made it easier for me to allow you to support me financially. Go to www.grieftogrowth.com/subscribe. That's grief, the number 2, growth.com/subscribe. And once you're there, you can sign up to support me financially. Now, you can do it for as little as $3 a month, or of course, as much as you'd like. If you do that, you'll get access to bonus episodes, and you'll see those in the regular feed. They'll have a lock on them. But when you become a subscriber, you'll actually get access to your own private feed, and you'll be able to listen to the regular podcast along with the bonus podcast for the subscribers. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sharing the podcast. And I want to thank those of you who support me financially. Have a great day, and on to the episode.
That's the point, telling us to stop. I would say it's forcing us to turn within, as you say, and stop and question everything in our lives. I mean, people are going through their lives right now. What is this all about? And people are beginning to change inside. We're putting down our phones, and now we're interacting with our family members more, hopefully. I think that's true. And going out for walks together in families, going out, for the people who are in your home, not others.
Yeah.
And then going out for walks by ourselves and keeping our social distance, and following all those rules that the CDC has said. That's very important to do that. We're having an appreciation for germs, viruses, and how they play a role in our health and well-being, and how being balanced in ourselves is very important. How to not get out of balance with nature, because this virus came from nature. I think it's Dr. Francis Collins, who's the director of the NIH. They believe it has come from bats and another mingling with another species as well. And it's really interesting, Brian, and I know for the mystics in the room here, may appreciate this. Others may, be quite skeptical. But a few weeks before this whole thing happened in the United States and we became aware of it, I had a dream, and it felt like one of those dreams where you're like, oh, this means something, but I'm not sure what it is. In this dream, I was in a building, and I was in a room, and it was like a classroom. It was a classroom. And there was a man in there. And all of a sudden, things started flying around the room. And I realized they were bats. And one of them went into my hair, and I brushed it away. And I left the room. And when I left the room, the door was left open a little bit. And I thought that man should close the door because bats could harm humans. And sure enough, only to find out that Dr. Collins is saying this came from bats.
Yeah.
So it was like a forewarning of something to come, but I didn't know what it was. And when all of this broke loose, and then I understood that very strange dream. And the interesting, in Ted Andrews' books, In the Meaning of Animal Speaking, bats have to do with an initiation. And we, humanity, certainly is being initiated into its divinity if we can understand it from that point of view. And this, what's happening in humanity is extraordinary. And any transitions of this magnitude, which has never happened on this planet before, is fraught with difficulty. And coming together in love and being kind. I've noticed people are kinder. They're moving more slowly, more thoughtfully. And I noticed that across the board.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mary, because I hesitate to use the word unprecedented because everybody thinks that everything that happens to our generation is unique. It's unprecedented. But when you think about this, I mean, we've had pandemics before, but we're so interconnected now, and we can literally see what's going on, and we could trace this thing from Wuhan in November or December to all across the world in just a matter of a few months. And we're seeing how tightly interconnected that we are and how dependent we are on each other. And it is, as I said, it's forced everyone in the world right now is focused on this one thing. We wake up in the morning and we think about this. It's on all of our lips. It's on all of our minds. So when has the world ever been so focused on one event? We see a tsunami in Southeast Asia, and we go, that was a tsunami. We see a war somewhere, that's somewhere else. This is in our neighborhood.
Just like the sun, it touches everyone. Doesn't matter, rich, poor, old, doesn't matter. It touches everyone, just like the sun. And it's an extraordinary. It is extraordinary because now we're so interconnected that we know about all of this. We're touched more than ever.
Right.
I mean, something happens across the world, and in 2 seconds, it's on your computer, and you know about it. So that is very unprecedented. Now, the astrologers, I'm not an astrologer, but I've been listening to the astrologers talking about the planetary alignments at this time, and it fascinates me. So if any people, get a chance, go on YouTube and look this up. They're talking about these big transformative planets of Saturn. Saturn is all about discipline and structure. Saturn, and I'm just going to look at my notes because I'm not an astrologer.
Yeah.
But Saturn and Jupiter being conjunct an earth sign, Capricorn. Capricorn is all about earth, material structures. And when Saturn and Jupiter come together in these earth signs, in these conjunctions, very tight alignments, things happen. For example, in the Industrial Revolution happened around the 1800s when Saturn and Jupiter came into the earth sign of Capricorn. That's when we had the Industrial Revolution. Heavy machinery, fossil fuel, coals, everything heavy. We came into, in terms of medicine, we came into drugs and penicillin around, the 1900s, and all of these earth material substances. And now what's happening is what's happening this time now, excuse my astrologers if I get this wrong, but it's pretty close. What's happening now is Saturn and Jupiter are conjunct in Capricorn, and Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and initiation, has joined in. These alignments happening now they are speaking to, with Jupiter being an expansive but also protective planet, with Saturn being the disciplinarian, saying we have to have structures, we need rules and limitations, and with that, and Pluto saying we have to break everything open because we need new paradigms coming in. In Capricorn, all of our structures on Earth, it's saying, we are going to just burst open all of these structures because we see the limitations of them. Saturn is about limitations. It shows you your limitations. So we're seeing the limitations of our medical system. We're seeing the limitations of our financial system, our educational system. All of our systems it's like they're just blown. And however, the good news is we're moving this whole year. We will be reevaluating ourselves. First of all, ourselves, not being identified anymore with a case of mistaken identity that we're separate egos, into reclaiming our divine oneness out of fear, reclaiming that in ways we've never experienced before. A few of us have experienced it.
Yeah.
More. This is what's being offered to humanity at this time. This is our great initiation of humanity. And I want to read what I was told and given when I had that experience of self-realization. Of course, I was asked to go back into the ego to learn more lessons, and I had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy about it. However, out of it came this book. But this is the message I was given, and this is a message for humanity right at this time. And it's ours. It belongs to us. Don't let anybody tell you differently either. The message I was given was this. Here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. Your soul wants full expression now. This is the presence. This is the living presence. This is living. This is real. And when that happened to me, Kundalini energy came up and the light of 1,000 suns opened the crown of my head. And I remembered my true home and reclaimed it as one. I was no longer me, Mary, the personality, and God. I was only God or divinity or Brahman as one entity, one being, one divine being creating the world. This is what we're being asked to reclaim in ourselves.
Yeah.
And we are being challenged, and it is not easy. The death and the grief that we feel, a lot of it is just, what it really is the death of the ego and releasing everything we thought was so permanent and familiar. And we have to take care of ourselves.
Well, let's talk about fear for a moment, because you touched on fear, and fear gets a bad name. I mean, people say fear is a bad thing, but I see fear, as you were just saying, fear is what's kind of motivating us to move forward. Fear is what's gotten all of our attention. Fear is what's caused us to all turn and focus and to slow down and stop. So I want people to understand it's okay to feel fearful right now. It's natural to feel fear right now, and let that fear motivate you into the next thing.
Yes, to turn inside. And one of the ways you can do that is to go into your breath. Mm-hmm. Just take a breath in, hold it for 4 seconds, and then out to the count of 7 seconds. And what that does is, as I said, when I had that first awakening, my mind stopped and I stopped thinking thoughts. And Eckhart Tolle speaks about this, that we create our egoic, fearful structure out of thoughts. But there's a space between a thought and a space between breaths where our divinity of now, the now, lives in that moment. And it's not just a thing about time, it's our divinity. If we truly all live truly in the now, we would be realized in like that.
Yeah.
And what shock does is it stops you for a moment. And in that space, something else can come in and be claimed within ourselves.
That's something, actually, I was recording a podcast, just a monologue earlier this morning, and I was thinking about the whole idea of all the uncertainty that we're feeling right now. So we go through life almost like robots. We think, next week I'm going to do this. Next year after that, I'm going to do this. We've got all these plans, and we just assume that things are going to go along. So we're always living in the future, or we're ruminating on. We're thinking about the past, and we're not really living in the now. And when I realize what all this uncertainty has done for me, is I have to focus on right now, because I don't know what's coming. The president said we might open up by Easter. We might open up by the end of April. We might be back to normal by the fall. And I finally had to say, I have to put all that aside. I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. I don't know what's going to happen in 6 days. So I have to focus on right now. And it's really forcing me to say, how am I doing now? As I'm sitting here now, am I okay now? And I'm okay now. And I don't know what's going to happen, next week.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm really excited to tell you about my latest ebook. It's 4 lessons that you can learn from the near-death experience without going through all the trouble of dying to learn them. I've been studying NDEs for several years now. I am completely convinced that not only are they 100% real, but that there's some very universal wisdom that we can get from the near-death experience. And I've distilled that down in this book into 4 short lessons. And I've also given you all the reasons why I believe that NDEs are absolutely real. So go to www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons to pick it up for free. www.growth.com/NDE lessons. I hope you enjoy it.
Eckhart speaks about that as well, as if you're living in the future, you're in fear. If you're living in the past, you're in regret. But right in this moment, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. And there's so much to say about it. But anyway, in what the astrologers are saying, we're going to be moving. This Saturn and Jupiter conjunction is slowly going to be moving in December, and we're going to be moving into Aquarius, the air signs, which are much lighter. And eventually we're going to be staying in air signs with Saturn and Jupiter till 2153 or something. And so they call this the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
It's going to be moving into the air signs, moving out of Capricorn, which we've been in or moving out of those earth signs, which we've been in for forever on this earth. And now we're moving towards that. And Aquarius is the great innovator, and it's lighter energy. It's not that heavy material. So we'll be moving out of fossil fuels. We'll be moving out of, in the field of medicine, we'll be looking at consciousness as a real entity. And it's very interesting because I came across an article recently by a physicist and cosmologist from MIT. And he wrote this abstract called Consciousness as a State of Matter. And his name is Max Tegmark. And why is that important? Because if we're moving into consciousness as the new, let's go to light bodies, then we're going to need to move into a system of medicine that not just works on a material level, but works on with the dynamis of the body. But first you have to recognize there is a dynamis, that there is something called consciousness and that it's quite real.
Right.
And I suppose that's where other modalities, of course, the acupuncturists work with this energy of the body, right? The homeopaths work with the energy. Homeopaths don't treat, of course, diseases. That's not what it does. But it works with the dynamis, the energy of the body, through a law called like cures like, and and these remedies are made from nature, and they're only existent on a nano form, so that there's no material in it, and all they do is act as a catalyst for your intelligent immune system to heal itself through the innate law of like cures like. So that's a new paradigm.
Yes.
So we are going to be coming into new, and of course I love my system of medicine. I love all the surgeons and the nurses and the doctors. They're my brothers and sisters. That's where I came from,
Yes.
So we have to have intelligence about when do we use what.
Right.
What can we use now?
Right.
And this is where homeopathy can be supportive of us. And
I've heard some energy healers put it as, if I break a leg, I'm going to go to the hospital and get my leg set. But if I've got a systematic type of thing, I'm going to use something like an energy healing, like a homeopathy or Reiki or
acupuncture or
something
whatever.
like that.
So, I believe as we wake up to these new paradigms, and it's hard for people to change, because the first thing you want to do is hunker down and hold on to your old paradigm, because that's where you feel you're secure.
Right.
But in the truth, when you open up and allow other paradigms to come in that can be supportive, it's not that you can't work in both. You work in tandem. You work together.
Right.
So homeopathy is great to help perhaps prevent your system from being overwhelmed.
Right.
And if you need to take whatever drugs you need to take them.
Right.
I mean, we have to learn to work together to support each other. And I hope, homeopathy was once part of our medical system in the United States. It's used all over the world. It was once part of our system.
Mm-hmm.
And some thought they didn't like it because they didn't understand the science behind it. But now we're catching up. Our science is catching up with it, especially when you have somebody like the physicist talking about consciousness as a state of matter, to
Mm-hmm.
recognize it as a real force in our dynamis. And for me, on a spiritual level, but because I've experienced so profoundly this consciousness, that its nature is an intelligent, divine nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I was recently reading about Dr. Francis Collins, who's the head of NIH.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a book called, he wrote a very interesting book. I actually met him many years ago. He wrote something called The Language of God. A scientist presents evidence for belief.
Okay.
And he believed that there was really no separation between science and, he called it religion, I call it spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe those two come together in consciousness, recognizing consciousness as the dynamic force that's in the body. And people who've had near-death experiences like I have had, and many have had, realize that you can't die. The body drops away.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, I'm still alive. I just don't have a body.
Yeah.
I can communicate, but it's different.
Yeah.
On a different way of communicating. And so that's by air. And so this is, as we're moving out of these strong planetary forces in earth signs, especially Capricorn at this time,
Mm-hmm.
we're breaking open the old paradigms. I mean, these old paradigms are going to challenge us as to whether you're going to be open to it or not, or you're going to shrink in fear because you think your safety rests in the ego.
Yeah, and one thing that concerns me is I've already heard people. I'm in Ohio now. We've been on lockdown for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And people are saying already, I just can't. I want to get back to normal. I can't wait to get back to normal. So
the ego is not normal.
Yeah,
I say the ego is not normal. That was the issue.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was saying, and I hate to even say this, I think this virus is going to be here long enough until we learn whatever lesson it's here to teach us. And I'm not sure we're there yet. I mean, we're
in the midst of it.
We want to go right back to where we were. We want to just.
And we can't, because it's not good for us. In fact, in actuality, consciousness wants to know itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say that humanity is calling forth this self, this awakening from itself, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's aware of it or not. Some people are aware of that and some people aren't aware of it.
I completely agree.
And it's a gift. It's a tough gift. It's a tough waking up. It's not easy to wake up. When I had to wake up, I went through hell.
Mm-hmm.
It was awful.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember it very, very well.
Yeah. And I think we need to acknowledge that. I mean, this is a tough thing. So I think when we're having these conversations, I don't want to minimize the pain and the fear and the death, the grief that we're going to suffer. I mean, they're saying now in the United States, probably 100,000 to 200,000 deaths.
Right.
And that's a very real, thing that it's scary.
Yes. And that's difficult. Of course, for those who have experienced that our nature is eternal, it doesn't hold quite the same weight. Although if we lose loved ones, of course, we're going to grieve just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, even now we miss hugging each other. We miss the physical presence of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have the energy presence of each other through remembering each other with love,
mm-hmm.
or maybe even doing Zoom with each other.
Right.
But it's not the same.
Right.
But for the most part, we're texting each other. So we don't get to hug each other. And that's the thing that we miss.
Right.
Because it's part of the earth experience.
Mm-hmm.
That hugging and holding someone. I miss hugging my family too, my friends. I miss that.
Yeah.
And so it's normal and natural what we should absolutely know is that we are eternal beings.
Mm-hmm.
We are eternal beings. And as such, that energy is eternal. Yes, the body only comes here for a certain amount of time and it drops away, and it
Mm-hmm.
serves a purpose, a very important purpose of
Mm-hmm.
waking up to our own divinity. And it's quite the play here of, being fully human and walking through those doorways of feelings.
Yeah.
But we are made for this time. We are made for this time, and anybody on this planet at this time going through this is strong.
Mm-hmm.
We are made for this time, and to support each other as best we can as we move through different awakenings. And one of the classes I'm actually doing is to offer some, people can register it online on my website.
Yeah, let's talk about your
maryjean.com.
class. Yes.
I'm going to be teaching, I'm keeping it very small.
Okay.
Because I'm going to do it on Zoom. It's the first time I've ever done it I have never used Zoom before like that. And so I have to learn the new technology.
I can help you with that.
Okay. So I'm getting up to speed on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the classes are for women in particular,
Mm-hmm.
because women are usually the bearers of health information. And usually they're the ones who sort of are more in control of their health in the family, and usually the ones who will spread the information more. And it's going to be on the different ways we can support our health as we move through this. One of them will be speaking about homeopathy,
Mm-hmm.
and certain remedies that help to support the system in particular ways through this time, and have always been used in epidemics, actually, to help people support themselves through these ways. I'm going to be talking about some antivirals that you can take to do that, and just little things like gargling with salt water, warm salt water, twice a day. That warmth of the salt water, viruses don't like that warmth. And this is why they're telling us, wash our hands with the soap and rub it, because it's covered, it's a molecule that's covered in fat, and so the soap breaks that down,
Mm-hmm.
and the friction breaks it down. So anything that's warm like that in salt water makes it incompatible with viruses, and viruses enter through eyes, nose, mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sets off the alarm in the immune system. We got to do something about this,
Right.
And so little things like that I'm going to be teaching women. So I'm only keeping it to 30 at a time, so we can be
people
live.
can go to your website, maryterhune.com.
maryterhune.com, click on classes.
Okay.
I'm going to start the classes April 16th while I get up to speed on the technology and everything.
Okay.
I'm preparing for it. And it'll go on for an hour and a half. And I'm going to keep, and I have another class, same thing, live. I want to do them live. I don't just want to make a video of it, because people actually need to speak with you
Mm-hmm.
live. So I'm going to attempt to do this. And that will be April 22nd will be the next one. And I will continue doing them live as long as people are interested in
Okay,
it.
great. Right.
And this will provide some support. I'm 76 years of age. I'm in that category. Who knows how long I'll be on this earth? I don't know. I think I have maybe 18 good more years in my life.
Nice.
So I'm trying to be of service in this life.
Mm-hmm.
I was given the gift of homeopathy. It's in my book.
Mm-hmm.
It will help people to understand it a little bit more, maybe before they take the class. But
let's talk about homeopathy just for a second, because you mentioned earlier, I mean, like we've got this material healthcare system now, and we talk about drugs, but frankly, we don't know how most drugs even work. We experiment, we find one that works, but we don't know how it works. Anesthesiologists, I've heard them say, we don't know why anesthesia works, because they don't know what consciousness is. They know it works. They've tried it. So we assume that works. But when it comes to something like homeopathy, we've kind of pushed that to the side.
Yeah. And it's a fear of, how can that work? I don't believe it. We don't have the science to prove it. Let's get rid of it. But, as consciousness becomes more of a real factor as a type of matter,
mm-hmm.
this is going to improve our healthcare system. This is going to improve how we prevent diseases. This is going to improve how we use that model so that drugs are not causing so many side effects and deaths in people as they do.
Right.
So this can only improve everything we already have and open up to this new paradigm. And so I'm excited to see what will happen as we open up to this understanding and paradigm. So in that's the changes occurring in the field of medicine, because we can't wait for a year for a vaccine. We can't wait a year.
Right.
We need something now. And these are the kind of support things that we want to give to each other now as we're moving towards something that's easier on the system, that works very quickly, that we can use quickly. And so I believe in our models and methods of prevention are going to change for the better, and to be, the people's medicine. And it's going to be affordable, and people can learn how. I believe you have to create a healer in every household. A healer in every household. In your medicine bag, you're going to have this, this, and this. So if this happens, you learn about it, you can be taught. I do believe the nurses are going to play a big role in this. I say this in my book. I believe they're going to open up clinics that are going to help to educate people. Every person needs to be educated in terms of their health, really health, and to be responsible for it through knowledge.
So for my listeners right now, they can go to your website, maryterhune.com, and sign up for your class. And will you be giving some starters or some guides how to get started in homeopathy?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I will teach some remedies that have been very helpful to support the system during these outbreaks that happen
Nice.
in humanity. And it has an historical use. I mean, it's been used for over 200 years. And there are no side effects. It doesn't interfere with your drugs. If you need to take antibiotics, take them. Whatever you need to do to keep your health. Please, if you're not breathing well, call 911.
Right, exactly.
Get yourself to the hospital.
Right.
But we're talking about trying to prevent you from having to overload a healthcare system.
Right.
That's what we want to do. I know my son-in-law works as an emergency room nurse and teacher at a hospital here in Boston. So I know the stresses and that my family is under when he has to go home.
Right.
What does he bring home with them?
Right.
My daughter works on emergency call for her dental office. Of course, I'm concerned for their health. They're concerned for their health. So I'm very aware of what's happening.
Right.
So what I'm trying to offer is to have, maybe we can do some things that can help prevent us from getting so sick that we have to go and overload the system. Let's try to go into prevention and to really teach some things so that you have that in your medicine bag at home, things to do, things I can use for myself to help myself so that it doesn't get out of hand. And what to recognize is, like, if you don't feel well, go to bed. Some easy things like sipping on hot water now is good to keep the throat dry. I mean, it keeps the throat moisture. Moisture, anything warm. Wearing a scarf, it really keeps the throat warm. Keeping yourself warm, not letting yourself get a chill, which can open you to being weak.
Yeah.
And to allow for the virus to take hold. Many people, they'll have no symptoms whatsoever. They can deal with it, not a problem.
Right.
But then there are others who, I said 80% will have mild symptoms and it'll feel like your regular flu. Okay. Others, it will go into difficulty breathing and a pneumonia. And 20% will have to end up in the hospital with that. 5% will end up in ICU, these numbers of course change, but it's approximate.
Right.
So how can we support ourselves in a way that can keep us out of needing?
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about what we're talking about here, because there are some things, and you mentioned, it's funny, you said going to bed, because I interviewed Kelvin Chen a couple of weeks ago and he was saying nap. And I'm not a napper, but I've been taking more breaks during the day just to go meditate and lying down on my bed and putting on some music and just meditating. And I've doubled my meditation time. So there's things that we could do to keep ourselves strong and healthy.
I highly recommend that. Brian, because when you meditate, you're calling upon that dynamic force in your body to increase its power in you,
Yeah.
keep your cells healthy, and to be in love, because fear just makes you vulnerable. And love, I'm going to be talking about a particular fear remedy that I love called aconite. And it's homeopathic, of course. It's not on a material level. I'm going to be talking about that in this class and how to take it. You know, how do I use it? Can I get it? Yes. Does it have side effects? No. Is it safe for everyone? Yes. But I'll be talking about how to take it, and then I can answer people's questions.
Well, and let's talk for people that say, okay, well, this sounds too good to be true. I can take this. It has no side effects. It's not going to interrupt my medication, because these are not large doses we're taking, right? These are very...
It exists on the level of the dynamic force, and it isn't the remedy that cures you. It's the remedy interacting with your vital force, or the dynamis, or the whatever you want to call it, in your system, that it acts as a catalyst for your immune system on another level to banish the disharmony. There are different words used. And in this new system and new paradigm, there are different words that will be used to describe this response.
Well, I think catalyst is a key word there. And me being a chemical engineer, I understand that word. Some of my listeners might not understand what a catalyst is.
You know, and it's interesting because it was a doctor, a German doctor, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who lived in the 17 and 1800s. He was a medical doctor and a brilliant chemist. And he was very dissatisfied with what was being used then, these harsh methods. And many people would die from these harsh methods, like, you know, baths of mercury, syphilis. And he became so disheartened that he embarked upon a different way of healing. And he discovered this by serendipity, this law of like cures like, which was written about for many years. And through that process, and being a chemist, he started developing remedies from nature. And in particular, it was the malaria. When malaria happened, he discovered that the cinchona bark had some properties that if you took it on a material level, it gave you the experience of symptoms of malaria. And it was bitter. And he wondered, well, why does this work if so he started diluting it, highly diluting it, so that it was no longer existent on a material level, but on a dynamic level. And then he took the remedy himself. And as he took it energetically, he started experiencing the experience of having symptoms of malaria, like fever and chills, and they would come back. They would kind of subside, and they would come back. And then when he stopped taking it, of course, it disappeared because it was all on an energetic level. And so he started giving it to people who had malaria, and to his amazement, the symptoms disappeared. But it's not because it killed anything.
Right.
Not because it killed a disease. It just matched the symptoms. That's all it did. And in that matching through like cures like, in that a law in nature, that it created a harmony inside the body on an energetic level. And therefore, the immune system kicked in and it disappeared. Now, it's profound how that works. And it's something that mystifies everyone.
Right.
But as we go into the realm of consciousness as another state of matter, the science is really going to catch up with understanding, how is this possible that this could work this way?
Well, you know, it's interesting because we're having this I'm thinking about the placebo effect, which in medicine we know is super strong. So every drug that is tested has to always be tested against the placebo effect, because and nobody understands the placebo effect. And modern medicine, it's not something that the materials really want to admit, but they have to, and they have to include it in drug trials, because they know a certain percentage of people, if you give them a pill and tell them it will do this, it will do that. And,
well, you know, of course, when you give remedies to babies, they don't know what you're giving them. You give remedies to dogs, and they all get well. The harmony's restored, and it's like, oh, you know, it works.
Yeah.
So so much for the placebo effect.
I'm not saying that the homeopathy is just the placebo.
But that's what they accuse it of. I mean, that's one of the many accusations.
Yeah, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there are things that we don't understand about.
There's things we don't understand, and so this whole field, as we move into the air signs, as we're moving in this big conjunction that's going to happen in December, I think 21st or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be huge. We're going to be catapulted into, just like we're being catapulted into a new life.
Yeah.
We're going to be catapulted, for those who wish to, if you wish to come into your divinity now, the doors are wide open to move out of the fearful ego. And one of the things you said, Brian, was very important, is to meditate a couple of times a day. Just lay down, put your earphones on, or just lay down, get away from the frightening TV.
Mm-hmm.
Just shut it off, go outside, go for a walk, be in the sun. Or just close your eyes and meditate on the space between your breath, like I said, and space between thoughts. You can even use a little mantra, I am that I am. I am that I am. Calling yourself home. Because we're bringing heaven on earth to create new structures, new paradigms. And it is unbelievable as we go through this. Yeah. And we're all going through it together.
We're all going through it together. Yeah.
And it's not easy for any of us. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for you.
Yeah, I have a daughter that I worry about. I have a 23-year-old daughter. So we all have loved ones. My parents. I talked to my father this morning. It's his 82nd birthday. And I was like checking on to see how they're doing because they're under quarantine. And he's like, "Well, your brother and sister won't let me leave the house." I'm like, "No, don't leave the house. Do everything they're telling you to do."
Yes, follow the guidelines, folks. Yeah. Follow the guidelines, please.
Yeah. And I'm following them myself, but and Mary, I really appreciate you doing that. I think this is so timely because I want to give people hope as we're going through this, that we're going to get through it together. I want people to see this as an opportunity for us as humanity to grow and change. And I truly hope we don't go back to normal, what we call.
We won't, because once you bust through, we can't. I mean, the whole earth is evolving, and so let's learn the lesson now.
Yeah.
Because if you keep holding on to the old paradigms, it's going to hurt more, and you're going to be in more fear. So just, as Eckhart says, be in this moment of the now. Be here, and without resisting and denying that it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening, and we are calling it forward. It's coming. If people can understand, your soul is calling this forward in yourself because you're tired of living in fear and lack and suffering.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I know some people might view this as a judgment. Some people might view this as bad karma, and I don't see it as that at all. No. I don't see it as a judgment. I don't see it as, see it as you said, we're calling this thing forth because
we're evolving.
Yeah.
We're evolving, and we're evolving together. How extraordinary. How extraordinary. I feel closer to people in my building than I've ever felt before. I feel closer to the people when I have to go to the grocery store with my mask and gloves, by the way.
Yeah.
And I feel so loving towards them and the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And, as they say in, what is it, Jesus said, and the first shall be last and the last shall be first.
Yes, exactly.
So now we're seeing that it isn't CEOs are the heroes. It's your grocery store woman or man.
Exactly.
Let's stand there and be in the midst of this, all these people coming through, and they have families, they have loved ones.
Yes.
And those are now they've become the real heroes.
Absolutely. So, the guy that brings the packages to your door, we can sit here and we can order stuff. And I've got friends that are like, they're ordering their groceries now. And I'm like, we're able to pay for someone to go bring our groceries to us. So we don't have to do that. We need to appreciate every job, every person.
And so now we're seeing it's a great equalizer. And this is our spiritual nature belongs to everybody equally. It's equal. Your divinity is equal. You don't have more divinity than somebody else.
Right.
Your divinity is equal for each of us. It doesn't matter who you are. And we're seeing this played out. We're seeing this now, and it's being played out in each of us. We're all changing inside, being kinder, more loving, more appreciative of every little exhausting. How much do you miss going out to dinner with your best friend?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's a loss.
Well, I tell you, a couple weeks ago, I went to get eggs because, eggs were gone for something. First it was toilet paper, then it was eggs. And we called Trader Joe's and they said they had eggs. So I go over to Trader Joe's and they had eggs. And now they actually had the eggs that I liked too. They had the ones that I wanted. And I was like, wow, this is really cool to be able to get the eggs that I want. But, most of the time it's just like you expect the shelves to be full.
Yes. So from now on, everyone, from now on, we are going to keep evolving and changing and opening to something far greater that we're going to love so much more, because then we can move out of this fearful separation. And it's not just a theoretical idea, but it is going to become, if you open to it, is literally changes you. And this light can come pouring through you and bring you peace and quiet in the midst of the tornado.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's here. We're doing it together.
Yeah, we are.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it through this. More than make it through this. We're gonna open up to a new world and create a new world like we have never seen before. Things are gonna happen that I can't even imagine. Believe me, I've experienced a lot.
Yeah.
But I do know what self-realization feels like, and I can tell you, it is a whole new world inside you when you have that.
Yeah.
And it's yours. You reclaim it. You remember it. It is yours.
Wow.
Here. It's yours. Claim it through meditation, through connecting with it, space between breaths. It's yours. It's all yours. And you are creating this new world. Every person is creating this new world. And it is incredible.
Yeah.
And we're all needed, all hands on deck.
Everybody.
Let's give our gifts as we have them, without fear, without incrimination. Everyone give their gift, whether it's a kind word, a look in your eyes of love, whether it's a painting. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
We're all creating something far beyond. Trust me when I tell you, believe me, it is the truth. It is the truth. So we're going to be with each other. We're going to see each other through. And it's more than hope. It's a reality, and it's happening. And it's real. And it is real. Here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. It's on our doorstep.
Well, Mary, I'm so glad we were able to do this today. I want to give your website again and spell your name. It's maryterhune.com. So it's Mary, Terhune. And your classes are starting. We're recording this on the 31st of March. Your classes are starting in mid-April?
April 16th is going to be the first one.
Okay.
As I gather myself together and learn this new technology at age 76. My God, who knew?
I am so impressed with you. I can't believe you're 76 either. I had no idea.
All learning it. So I just want to, this is what the book looks like.
Yeah, the book is Out of the Blue.
Out of the Blue.
It's a fantastic book of Mary's experience. We just touched on it today. I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 46 from January of this year and to go ahead and get the book. Mary,
it'll help people as they go through the process. It will help you to see what is it like for someone to go through that.
Yeah, well, you went through on a micro level what we are going through on a macro level.
Macro level. Yeah. And there are other people like me, and I always wondered, why did I have to go through this? What was my purpose on this earth? And now is the time for each person who has gone through this to give support to others, to let them know we're going through this. This is good. It's hard, but it's to reclaim our divine nature, to create heaven on earth inside ourselves and for each other, and so that we can share the wealth of this planet. I want to see everybody housed, fed, clothed, educated, and in good health. And not only is it possible, it's here. And we're breaking open and creating new ways. So we're in this together, Brian. We're going to march along together.
Well, Mary, once again, you've made my afternoon. I appreciate it. I feel so much better having talked to you.
Me too, Brian. Thank you.
All right. You have a good day.
You as well.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I want to make it really easy for you to reach me. So just send me a text to 31996 and simply text the word growth, GROWTH. In fact, you can right now just say, "Hey Siri, send a message to 31996. And when Siri asks you what you want to send, just say growth. You can do the same thing with OK Google. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to Grief to Growth. Brian hopes that you find this episode helpful and will come back for future episodes. Brian's best-selling book, Grief to Growth, Planted Not Buried, is a great resource for anyone who is coping with grief or knows someone who is. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to support it, there are 3 things you can do to help. The first is to share the podcast with someone that you think it will help. The second is to go to iTunes, rate, and review the episode. The third way you can support the podcast is by becoming a patron. Head over to www.patreon.com/grief2growth. That's patreon.com/grief, the number 2, growth, and sign up to make a small monthly donation. Patrons get access to exclusive bonus content and knowledge that you are helping to spread the message of grief to growth. For more about Brian and Grief to Growth, visit www.grief2growth.com.
Hi there. I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the podcast, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions came up for you? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? I invite you to visit us at grieftogrowth.circle.so. That's grief, the number 2, growth.circle.so to continue the conversation with me and with other listeners. It's a space to sound off, to share reactions, and to go deeper into the topics from the show. I look forward to chatting more, and I hope to see you there.